My name is Usman and I am from Gujranwala. What I am about to tell you is not just a scary story, but an experience that changed my thinking, my faith, and every aspect of my life. This happened in 2018 when we rented an old school building. On the outside, it was an ordinary building, but as soon as you entered inside, a strange feeling would come over you, as if the walls were not made just of bricks, but of some silent history. As if there was something there that could not be seen, but could definitely be felt. The first few days were completely normal. The voices of children, laughter, noise, everything was as it should be in a school. But as the days passed, an unknown burden began to be felt in that place, as if there was some pressure in the atmosphere that was slowly increasing. The first complaint came from the children. They said that the swings in the courtyard were moving on their own. We laughed it off, but the fear on the children's faces did not seem artificial. They were genuinely scared. I decided one day to observe it myself. It was evening time. The sun was setting and the school was almost empty. I was standing in the courtyard when suddenly my eyes fell on one of the swings. It was swinging slowly, gently, as if someone had just let go of it, but there was no one there. The wind was not even blowing. The leaves of the trees were still, but that swing was moving. And at that moment, for the first time, a real fear took birth in my heart. At the back of the school, there was an old basement that was always locked. We had been told that it had not been opened for years, but the children started saying that sounds came from there, as if someone was walking inside, as if someone was crying. Initially, we thought it was just their imagination. But one day a small child came to me crying and said, "Sir, he calls me." On his face was that fear which does not come from a story but from reality. This made me uneasy. Still, I convinced myself that it was all psychological pressure. A new place. Children get scared, but the reality was much deeper than that. One night I had to stay at the school. The entire school was empty. The silence of the night had completely transformed this place. The same walls, the same rooms, but everything felt foreign, as if I had arrived somewhere else. I was sitting in the office when suddenly a sound came, as if someone had dragged a chair forcefully. That sound was so clear that I jumped to my feet. Slowly, I moved toward the basement. My heartbeat was increasing, and as I got closer, another sound became audible. The sound of a child crying. That voice was weak, but it had a certain helplessness that pierced straight into the heart. I went close to the door and put my ear to it. From inside came the sound of sobbing, as if someone had been crying for years and had lost all hope. I stepped back. My hands were trembling. I told myself it was all an illusion, but my heart was not ready to accept it. The next day I told this to my father. He listened to me in silence. Then he gave me the keys to that room and said, "Some things cannot be understood just by looking, but caution is necessary." There was a strange seriousness in his tone. Several days passed in silence, as if nothing was there. But then one night the sound started again, this time louder, closer, as if someone was begging for help from inside. I gathered my courage and went toward the basement. As soon as I reached near the door, suddenly the electricity of the entire school went out. Complete darkness fell, a darkness that was not ordinary, as if even light was not allowed to enter there. I turned on the torch of my mobile phone. My hands were shaking. I tried to open the door, but it seemed to be locked from inside. I put all my strength into it, and suddenly the door opened with a jerk and I stumbled inside. There was a terrible smell inside. The smell of decayed moisture, as if something very old had rotted away. I moved the torchlight around. An old chair, a table, and a blackboard, but the atmosphere of the room had a strange heaviness, as if someone was watching me. As soon as I took one step forward, the door slammed shut. I immediately turned back and tried to open it, but it would not open, as if someone was holding it not from outside, but from inside. At that moment, the chair in front of me slowly started sliding backward on its own, as if someone had just gotten up from it. My body went numb, I could not move, my breath was stopping. Then a voice came near my ear, very soft. "Sir, will you lock me in too?" My heart felt as if it would burst. There was not just fear in that voice. There was a complaint, a question, as if he had asked the same thing of someone else before. I moved the torch to the blackboard and words started appearing on their own, as if an invisible hand was writing them. I opened the door. He closed it. Suddenly I saw a scene, as if that room had come alive. A child was trembling, banging on the door, screaming, "Sir, let me out!" And outside the sound of footsteps, then silence, then darkness, then crying, and that crying never ended. I started reciting the powerful verses of the Quran with all my strength. The words were breaking, my tongue was stumbling, but I kept reciting, and slowly the door began to open, as if someone was letting go. I ran out. The next day, when we investigated, the reality slowly began to unfold before us. And the more we learned, the more we realized that we were not standing in an ordinary place, but inside a wound that had never healed despite the passage of time. We found out from an elderly man in the neighborhood that years ago, when this school was new, there used to be a teacher here named Riaz Ahmed. On the surface, he was a strict and disciplined teacher, but in reality, he was an overly harsh, angry man who tormented the children. The children did not just fear him, they trembled before him. As soon as he entered the classroom, silence would fall, and for even a small mistake, he would punish the children so severely that marks would remain on their bodies. In that same school, there was a child named Adil. He was no more than 10 or 11 years old, thin, quiet in nature, and very innocent. He was weak in his studies, and that became the biggest cause of that teacher's anger. He was often humiliated in front of the whole class, beaten, and sometimes made to stand for hours. Other children were afraid to even come near him, because anyone who supported him would also become a target of punishment. One day, on a small mistake, Adil could not recite his lesson properly. Riaz Ahmed's anger exceeded all limits. He beat him badly in front of the whole class, then dragged him to the back of the school where that basement was. The children saw him pushing Adil inside. Adil was crying, screaming, "Sir, forgive me. I will not do it again." But there was no mercy on that teacher's face. He closed the door, put the lock on, and returned to the class. At first, the children thought perhaps he would let him out after some time, but time passed. 1 hour, 2 hours. Then the school day ended. No child had the courage to ask. They were all too scared. Meanwhile, Adil's family was waiting for him. He used to come home on time every day. But that day, he did not come. His mother stood at the door waiting for him. She kept peeking into the street, jumping at every sound. But he did not come. Evening turned into night, and restlessness turned into fear. His father and older brother went out to look for him. They searched the streets. They asked his friends, but no one knew anything. The next day they reached the school, distraught and desperate. They asked the teachers. They asked the children, but they did not get a clear answer. Some children, trembling with fear, only said that the teacher had taken him somewhere the day before, but no one had the courage to tell the truth. Riaz Ahmed flatly denied knowing anything. He said that Adil had gone home on time. Days passed. The search continued. Posters were put up. Announcements were made in mosques, but no trace of Adil was found. His mother's condition worsened day by day. She would often come and sit outside the school. She would keep looking at the door, as if she was convinced that her son was somewhere right there and would come out any moment. After about a week, some staff members complained of a strange smell coming from the back of the school. At first, it was ignored. But when the smell became unbearable, the basement door was forced open. When the door was opened, everyone was horrified by what they saw inside. Inside was Adil's body, huddled against the wall. His nails were broken as if he had tried desperately to open the door. Fear was frozen on his face as if he had been screaming until his last breath. His eyes were open, and in them was a question: why? It is said that his fingernail marks were still present on the inner surface of the door, as if he had kept trying to get out until his last breath, but no one came. This news spread like wildfire throughout the area. Adil's parents were shattered. When his mother saw him, she fainted right there and never fully recovered afterwards. She would often repeat the same sentence. He was afraid of the dark. The police registered a case, and finally the truth came out. The children, despite their fear, gave their statements, and Riaz Ahmed was arrested. But the story did not end there. While in jail, strange and terrifying incidents began to happen to him. He would scream. He would wake up at night and talk to the walls. He would say that someone was watching him. Someone was standing close to him. He kept repeating the same sentence. I opened the door. He did not come out. The jail guard said that he would often stand in a corner of his cell at night and apologize to an invisible child. Many times he was seen grabbing his own throat as if someone else was choking him. Within a few months he was found dead in that very condition. His face was distorted with fear. His eyes were open, and on the wall were scratch marks from his nails, exactly like those of Adil. We immediately called a religious scholar. He recited from the Quran there, performed spiritual healing, and told us one thing that still echoes in my mind. This is not just a spirit. This is anguish, the effect of oppression. And when oppression happens, its effects do not end. They attach themselves to places. We left that school, but that thing did not leave us. For many nights afterwards, I kept hearing the same voice. Sir, let me go. After that, I changed my life. I started being regular in my prayers. I made it a habit to recite the powerful verses of the Quran and the chapters of refuge before sleeping. Because I had understood that in this world, there are also some creations that we cannot see, but they see us, and sometimes they also make contact with us. Even today, sometimes when I am alone and there is complete silence, I feel as if someone comes very close to me and softly says, Sir, why didn't you save me? And I still have no answer to that question. This story is not just a tale of horror. It is a reminder that every action has consequences that can linger for years, decades, even beyond lifetimes. The building we rented was just bricks and mortar, but what happened inside those walls turned it into a prison of sorrow. The children who studied there after the incident would often complain of seeing a small boy standing near the basement door. Some said they heard crying when no one was around. Some said they felt a small hand tugging at their clothes, and when they looked down, there was nothing. I remember one incident clearly. A few weeks after we had started the school, a little girl came to me and said, Sir, there is a boy in my class who sits in the last row. He never talks, he never writes. He just stares at the blackboard. When I ask him his name, he disappears. I dismissed it at first. But when more children started describing the same boy, I grew concerned. The description matched Adil, thin, quiet, with sad eyes. One day I stayed after school to see for myself. I sat in the empty classroom as the sun set. The shadows grew long, and then at the back of the room I saw a faint outline, a small figure barely visible sitting at a desk. He was not moving, just staring ahead. I called out, Adil. The figure turned toward me. There were no features, just a blur of light and shadow, but I felt a wave of sadness wash over me, not fear, just deep, profound sadness. I whispered, I'm sorry, and then the figure faded away. That was the moment I knew we had to leave, not because of fear, but because of grief. That child was not there to scare us. He was there because he had nowhere else to go. He had been forgotten by the world, locked in a dark room and left to die. And even after death, no one had come to free him. The religious scholar performed a ceremony. We prayed for Adil's soul. We asked for mercy and peace for him. That night, for the first time in months, there was no crying sound from the basement, no swinging swings, no whispers in the dark. We vacated the building the next week. I heard later that it was demolished. A new building was constructed in its place. I do not know if Adil's spirit finally found peace. I hope he did. But I will never forget that voice. Sir, will you lock me in too? It changed me. It made me realize that the world is not just what we see. There are layers. There are echoes. There are cries that never fade. And it is our duty to listen, to remember, and to ensure that no child is ever locked away and forgotten again. If you like this story, please like the video and leave a kind comment. We will meet again, God willing, with another story.